Greetings, fanboys and fangirls. Jared here with another review from Fanboys Forever. And today I'm going to be... Wait. Oh. Just got a Christmas card. This should be good. Lovely. Happy holidays. We open it up and... Okay, there's nothing in it. Krampus. What? Oh, God. We are reviewing the Mythic Legion's Krampus action figure. Now, Krampus, of course, is that legend of the evil kind of Santa Claus who comes after naughty boys and girls who have been very bad. Of course, a couple of years ago, everybody got Krampus fever in America, it seems, after the big movie came out and all of that, and there was a billion different little cheapo direct-to-DVD Krampus movies. So it was a funny time, but Krampus fever resulted in a whole lot more exposure for that particular legend. So let's go ahead and check it out and see what it is. This is from Store Horsmen, of course, the Four Horsemen. That is their storefront. They do their line Mythic Legions there, which is like a 6-inch collector's line for all sorts of kind of non-licensed sorts of things that they just create. That's just kind of cool. You can see their logo down there with the Four Horsemen and the skull of the horse right there. You have the Krampus wording and the really cool artwork of Krampus himself. Moving on to the back, we have this really nicely retold legend of Krampus. So this is pretty cool to see. Just some more info at the bottom. And I think this is a really cool touch. There's a window down to the actual figure itself that's shaped like the Four Horsemen logo. I'm actually quite impressed by the functionality of this packaging. You see, it's held together with magnets, and of course that's a neat thing. But then if you look, the back is held on with magnets as well. And once you remove that, you get this cool kind of diorama piece. And you can just unfold this, and there's all kinds of fires and trees and things, and it's this big winter scene. So I think this is awesome because it just begs for the figure to be taken out of the packaging and actually displayed this way. So I think that is really cool. And this means the actual figure itself is reduced to just this box. It's a really nice window box with Krampus on it. You can see that we have a tree on the side, and on the back we have what may be Krampus's house, perhaps on the edge of a cliff, or maybe just a house that he's visiting, because you can see him down there. So maybe he's coming after one of those bratty little kids. Let's not keep the man waiting any longer. Let's open him up. Here we have a little note from the Four Horsemen, just saying, hey, maybe heat the figure up if you're having any trouble with the joints, because of course during cold weather, like when I'm currently reviewing this, it might not be so great if the joints break on you. So there's just a little bit of setup to do on Krampus before you display him. One of the things is you need to go ahead and have these shackles on the hands. You can put one on each wrist and they just open up. I found it to be a lot easier for me to actually just remove the hands, then put the shackle on, then replace the hand. And you run the chain behind his back. At least that's what it shows on the back of the packaging. You can also take one of these off and then shackle him to maybe an unfortunate action figure in your collection who he is punishing. You can also take this rope here and you run it through this little opening on his little satchel on the back. And I've done it to where I can just undo this if I want to and try some different things. But I've pretty much done it to where there's a loop over each one of his shoulders. And so that he can kind of carry it like a little backpack. And we'll get into what's in there later on in the review. Another little setup thing that I found to be the most difficult part actually was to actually plug in the tail. And that's because the figure, I guess, had gotten cold and it absolutely would not go. So I actually had to take a little heat gun and that way I could attach the tail. The last bit of setup are these evil jingle bells. We're going to say they're evil anyway, regardless. And all you got to do is just put them around the neck up there. And you can see that they run very, very low like this once they're completely unspooled. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just double this over. Once you get it the way you want, then you just take the fur piece, which comes right off once you remove the head, which is a very easy thing to do. And you just lay it over top of it like so. And the result looks a lot better in my opinion, but I do definitely double loop that. And I think it looks a lot cooler like that, a lot nicer. And now Krampus is ready to go. Let's go ahead and have a look at this absolutely devious figure from Four Horsemen. So first off, like I said earlier, he is in the 6-inch scale. The Four Horsemen, of course, that's their preferred scale. They've worked in it for many years now. Let's start with this sculpt. I mean, this is absolutely as gnarly as it gets in terms of an action figure head sculpt. You can see the massive horns, which have always been a part of that Krampus lore. You can see the kind of pointed ears, almost like an evil elf. You can see all of that cool detail in the face. You can almost see little scars and things going on. The red piercing eyes right there. The crazy tongue. The teeth, which are just going every which way. This guy definitely needs to see a dentist. And the fur. The Horsemen always do such an incredible job on the fur. It just looks spectacular from every angle. It's one of those figures that the sculpt looks just as good from the side as it does 3/4, as it does head on, as it does even from the back. It's just as intimidating this way as it is facing forward. Moving on down, the details don't stop. You can see he has this red cord for the necklace, some jingle bells maybe so that the kids can at least get a little bit of a head start on the run from him. That he's got just a kind of a scarred up, regular kind of humanoid chest just done in pitch black. He also has these cool gauntlets that are kind of medieval in a way, really. They almost look like evil knight's armor, almost like Sauron from the beginning of Lord of the Rings and Fellowship of the Ring. You can also see that he's got this like big metal belt, the armor on the sides, and then he's got sort of a kilt sort of thing going on with the fur, and which is just, I think, implied to just like, that's just a part of him. He's just, you know, a big furry monster. But then he has the cool little decorative rings and things, and I'm sure there's probably a proper name for that. Moving on down, it continues with that kind of Sauron aesthetic with the cool armor. And then he's got the big like horse hooves down here, which kind of, you know, goes with that Krampus mythology. He's more like this evil goat man in a way. So I think it works really well for what they're going for. Moving on to the back, you can see that we have this cool tail, once again going with the Horseman's excellent ability to sculpt all of that fur. I think it really adds a little something to it. Moving this out of the way, you can see the armor from the back there, the chain coming around, and then he's got this cool kind of container that he's wearing on his back, and we'll see what's in there a little bit later. For as corny as it sounds, I think Krampus really puts the Mythic and Mythic Legions, and that's the cool thing about this series from the Four Horsemen, is they're always doing their own take on different bits of mythology and things, and I just love it. Krampus is a really natural fit for them and the kind of stuff that they usually do. Let's talk about paint just for a minute. The paint work is very consistent. You can see that the eyes are well matched up, which, you know, can be a problem. My favorite bit of paint work is actually the crazy tongue. There's a few different shades going on here, and it just turned out really, really well. That highlighting in the middle, I think, really sells it. Teeth are always tough at any scale, and I think that they did a great job here. You can actually see the separation in the teeth and the kind of blood red gums. I have a feeling that he has the gum disease known as gingivitis. Moving on down, there's not a lot of paint work on the chest. It's all just black plastic. Of course, the silver brushing is there, and a few other details like the red cords. There's more paint on the back with this little container done in the Christmas colors, but I like how it's kind of worn, so it looks like it's not the newest or the nicest. It doesn't look like he just like bought this at Walmart the day before, so I love it. So what about his articulation? Well, if you're familiar with the Mythic Legions, then you'll know all about it. The head can go all the way around. There's a pretty good little up and down range, but it's kind of blocked by the furry piece. Of course, you can remove the furry piece if you want to, but it's on there. You can see that there is no diaphragm joint, but there's at the waist, this joint kind of makes up for it because it can go really far back. It can go really far forward. So indeed, the Horsemen have figured out a way to still get that kind of range without breaking up their sculpt. So that's a good thing. These shoulders go way out if you need them to, over 90 degrees. So that works really well. You can easily move them up and down. There is a rotation at the elbow. The hands do rotate. And there's a hinge in there, so you can hinge them out or hinge them in if you so desire. Of course, they will unplug if you push them too far. Like I said earlier about the waist, not only does it give a good front and back rotation, you can get a little bit of side-to-side movement too. You can, of course, turn it all the way around. Down here at the legs, you can see that you can get a split motion, and thankfully, the pads on the sides of the legs are soft enough to where he can do the splits and they don't even inhibit him. You can bring the legs together all the way, and there is a rotation right here, so it can rotate all the way around if you need it to. It can go up really far too, so if Krampus has to kung fu someone, This is one of the better kind of kick ranges I've seen in a figure in a while, actually. There is a single joint right here at the leg, and it does go a little bit more than 90, so that is good. Also, it rotates as well. Moving on down, you can see that even with these hooves, there's plenty of ankle pivot. There is a hinge that makes it go up and back just a little bit. It's not a huge amount of range. A little bit of this armor on the sides blocks it, but it still can pivot enough to where you can probably make him hold some pretty wide stances. Although it definitely took me a second to kind of find his footing, literally, it was very possible to get kind of a wider stance. And he's not leaning or anything on the little piece behind him. He's just freestanding like this. So I definitely think there's plenty of opportunities for great posing. The last articulation point is the tail. It can go way up, it can go way down, it can rotate all the way around. You can even put it down like this if you want to. So it can really, in your posing, kind of add that little extra something, especially for side turns, as if he's like, I'll get you later. It's pretty fun. Let's go ahead and talk about accessories. Like I said earlier, he does have the little jingle bells, and he has the satchel back here. And one thing that I've had trouble with is keeping this lid on. It's supposed to just fit into this groove here, but I think if I heated it and then tried it, it would do a lot better. This, I suppose, is where he puts the bad. You can see that he does have an array of folks that he has forgotten about down there. You have a larger skull, you have a smaller skull. This guy's missing a tooth. This one, the mouth doesn't open or anything like that, but it can substitute right there onto his head if you want him to have a skull head. It's possible, not sure why you would want him to, but you know, you could. This one, I suppose you could fit on as well. You can open up the mouth, and it's actually hinged. The other one didn't have the hinged jaw. And he also has 2 skeleton hands, so that's something you could do as well. Is it possible for him to use the hands? Well, let's check it out. The hands are a little hard to remove, but I've certainly not had any kind of quality problems. And yep, he can have a tiny little skeleton hand if you really want him to, so that's possible. He can also have a human skull head, which, even though I think is a little weird, it's kind of creepy and sort of cool, so I think that's neat. The smaller skull doesn't really fit quite as well, but it also looks cool. He does come with 2 clasping hands if you do want him to hold stuff. Something that a lot of the official photography doesn't really show is this bandolier piece that you can put over the chest. So I went ahead and put that on there. It's just something cool that you can add to kind of vary up the look a little bit, so I think I'll keep it on there. It seems fun. For the last accessory, the 4 Horsemen went very traditional. It is a bound pile of birch reeds. That's right. I really like how this thing is assembled, by the way, because there's a couple of different layers of reeds there. So I think that's really cool. Also, the rope looks kind of neat. A little glossy in parts there for some reason on mine, so I'm not really sure what that's about. Almost like they missed a little spot of matte right there, but I may go in and fix that myself. Apparently, this is Krampus's traditional weapon of choice, and he uses this to whip those naughty, naughty kids. I guess what I'm trying to tell you is, kids, if you've been bad this year and you ask for a switch, be very, very careful with the way you word that, okay? Because Krampus, you know, he don't play. Going by my most recent review subject here, which is Holiday Gomez. So you can see that they're pretty much right in the same scale with one another. Krampus is maybe just slightly bigger, but maybe Gomez's limbs are a little kind of more gangly looking. So I do think that it's a pretty good fit. Of course, Gomez's giant head kind of keeps things off kilter a little bit. Of course, Gomez can't have all the fun. We brought in good old cousin Eddie over here, so you can see this is quite a Yuletide trio. Quick little note about this guy. He's actually wearing some Christmassy boxer shorts under the reindeer getup, and I had no idea till after I filmed my review of the Advent calendar, so there you go. And just because here is a Marvel Legends figure, you've got John Walker, Captain America, or U.S. Agent, however you want to look at it, and once again, it works really well. And just for uselessness, here is He-Man from Masters of the Universe Origins, so you can tell they're not in the same scale. And if you want a slightly different kind of 6-inch scale, here is the Phantom Ranger from Power Rangers Lightning Collection, and they work really well together. Definitely Krampus and Mythic Legions itself is in that sweet spot of 6-inch figures to where they're not too big, but they're not too small either, so it works really well across lines. For as much as we don't want to sometimes, it is important to talk about price on these things. I was really pretty shocked by how expensive this guy was at Store Horsmen. Once shipping and everything else was factored in, he ended up being very nearly $75. This is a crazy amount of money to pay for a 6-inch action figure. We're veering into more of that Mezco territory without getting the amount of stuff. Usually Mezco charging, somewhere around that $100 mark, but you do get a display stand and all sorts of alternate heads and a ton of alternate hands and every weapon imaginable. You get some of that, and I suppose the skulls could be considered some alternate heads, but it's kind of tough to justify that. The one thing, though, that is different and something that you should keep in mind is that Store Horsemen and the Four Horsemen themselves are truly independent action figure manufacturing group. Not only that, but this is very, very high quality action figure production done at, I'm sure, a very, very limited number. So I think that does make a difference. I'm not saying that the price is wonderful or anything like that, but when you are dealing with a completely independent action figure maker compared to something like Mezco, the Four Horsemen are still very small, and they do a very limited run of these types of figures. Combine that with the premium kind of packaging, and that this was a limited holiday item, and of course you're going to be paying the price. For me, definitely worth it, because I have wanted for years and years to have a super detailed, kind of crazy, gnarly Krampus action figure that wasn't just a joke. And that's something we should talk about. Tone. This figure definitely strives for a completely different kind of tone than, say, for instance, the Mezco holiday figures that we looked at recently. Those were definitely meant to be action comedy, let's have fun with Christmas kind of things. They weren't at all supposed to be something that was completely serious. This, on the other hand, is not tongue-in-cheek at all, and this is their interpretation of him as this super realistic, kind of horrifying beast. And I think they've done a really great job of capitalizing on this guy as a real kind of horror. I definitely see that as the strength of this figure. In the end, do I suggest Krampus? I do, only to certain folks. I think that most people would be fine not getting him, but if you're like me and you love Christmas and you love the kind of mythology associated with Christmas, even something as evil as Krampus, I just kind of think it's funny, it's kind of cool. This is an intense Krampus action figure that is as good as a Krampus as I think you could possibly get. So if you're in the market for that, it's great. However, if you miss that initial ordering window, then that is bad, because these things are really expensive on the secondary market right now. You'll have to look at the prices for yourself and decide if that's something you're willing to do. I'm not sure if it's something I would be willing to do, but for the price I paid, I can live with it. Any more than that, don't think I could have gone for it. I do want to thank everybody for watching the review today. If you're looking for something really creepy for your holiday, then this Krampus figure is definitely it. And if you feel we deserve it, we would appreciate it if you would like the video. It helps the YouTube algorithm to share it out to other folks that may be interested in the channel, and it will help us grow. Speaking of growing, if you could subscribe to the channel, we'd also really appreciate it. You don't want to miss all the other Christmas-themed videos that we have coming up, as well as the other reviews. If you love Masters of the Universe, this is a very Masters of the Universe kind of focused channel, and if you don't love it, you'll find other cool things going on, like Lego live streams and different things that I do. Of course, this channel wouldn't be anything without you, so I really appreciate it. Let me know down below what you think of this Krampus figure. Is it something that you believe is really cool, or is it something that you think is overpriced and that you could just pass on? I really enjoyed it, and I certainly had a lot of fun looking at him today. Well, friends, as always, God bless you and yours, and I'll see you on Fanboys Forever. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.